Hello, it's me again. Well, here we are in the conservatory. It's a nice day. Got a nice breeze blowing through. So it's nice and comfortable. Um, right, what should we talk about this time? Well, there's the things I've learned since having a few miles on the Forza 350. It's not really a review as such, but more things that I've found out from riding it. Obviously, I haven't been doing my ride out videos quite yet because I'm just got taken on 2 new bikes and I want to get to know them, and having to mess around with cameras and things and recording and all that I don't want to do right at this minute. And of course with health and weather and things in between, and also family things, I haven't gotten out as much as I'd like to, but I have gotten a few miles on the Forza now, so I can give you a formed opinion on how that is compared to the original Forza 300 I had. First of all, power. It's a 330cc single cylinder, 4 valve per cylinder, liquid cooled engine, connected to constantly variable transmission. It basically means you're on the power all the time, and I have found that the power available in all modes of riding, whether it's urban or A roads, fast A road, B roads, back roads, and just bimbling about, the power is more than adequate, sir. Yeah. She gets along nicely. The modern version of the CVT that they put on it has no jerkiness about it. You twist the throttle and it's just there. There's no hesitancy. There's no feeling of clutch slip that you used to get on the old ones. It's all been dialed out. I wonder if knocked it out of the ballpark this time with the Forza 350. And another thing of note is that the brakes are adequate. They pull up smartly when you need them to. The ABS isn't too obtrusive. I did used to find the ABS on the 300 model a little bit more noticeable. But this isn't the case on the new one. The ABS, you don't really notice it kicking in until you actually need it. So it's, it's not, it doesn't interfere with your normal cadence braking and stuff like that, which is great. Because I can ride it without any concerns from that point of view. I find the point of balance is quite good on it. Pretty much the seating position and the balance characteristics of it are very similar to the older Forza models. So they've tweaked up a few of the things that needed tweaking up, and kept the things that made it a good bike. So from that point of view, I'm quite happy. Now, another thing I've learned about the Forza is that, unlike certain other models, the fuel gauge is pretty accurate. Accurate enough to be useful. Unlike other makes. Yes, I'm looking at you, Royal Enfield. Now, I can't comment on the new Gorilla because I haven't ridden it. I can't comment on the 650 models. I can't comment on those, but I can comment on the Himalayan and the J platform bikes. Now, the Himalayan's fuel gauge wasn't too bad actually, being an analogue one, and it was reasonably good. But of course, they made up for that by fitting that electronic compass that never bloody worked properly. So, it is what it is. The J platform bikes, well, the fuel gauge on the Classic, and I suppose the Bullet by inference, the Classic 350s fuel gauge was okay. It wasn't brilliantly accurate, but it was close enough to be reasonably useful, just as long as you always topped up before you went on a major journey anyway. And the Meteor's fuel gauge was, well, next to useless, and I wouldn't trust it for anything. But it strikes me funny that these days, when there is a way of making an accurate fuel gauge, that you still get fuel gauges that aren't that good. Now, if memory serves correct, Showa Suspension, I'll get to the point in a minute. Showa Suspension was a subsidiary company, or a wholly owned subsidiary of Honda. Showa Suspension, supplies a lot of the motorcycle market now, including Royal Enfield. So historically, they've always been on Hondas. And you've got Showa Suspension on the Forza, and on the CL500 for that matter. And a lot of the Enfield models are using Showa Suspension. Perhaps somebody at Royal Enfield ought to talk to Honda about how they get their fuel gauges to work, because I was quite surprised how good the fuel gauge is on the Honda. So other manufacturers take note. When we have a fuel gauge on a bike, we do like it to work. Otherwise, there's no point in it being there. So there's that. So, yep, fuel gauge on the Forza, very good indeed. Cooling system and all the other sort of subsystems of the bike are pretty much what you expect from Honda. The build quality on the Forza is generally excellent. The tyres, Michelin City Grip 2s, had no problem with those whatsoever. They track nicely. Some people seem to have a problem with the front suspension on the Forza 350. I have encountered no problems whatsoever with the front suspension, so I don't know what they're doing, but whatever they're doing, they're not doing it right. Some people seem to think that the suspension doesn't cope under fast. Somebody complained that their bike started, they nearly lost the front end because they took a corner out of a junction at 30 miles an hour. Well, they pretty much answered their own question there. You're only supposed to do those corners at a maximum of 20 miles an hour. I mean, it's one of the first things they teach you in, driving school, with cars. And it's pretty much the same for bikes. When you're in a 30 zone and you're going around the corner, then, 20 mile an hour is, they usually say 20 mile an hour second gear. And I can only assume that person, on one of the forums, complained about the front suspension not being right for that sort of cornering. Well, quite frankly, you're using the wrong sort of vehicle for that sort of, that's just silly. So stop it. Is the answer. There's nothing wrong with the steering on the Forza. There's nothing wrong with the tyres or the grip or the front suspension. The front suspension on the... I mean, people keep saying, oh, well, it's not as good as the Showa stuff on the ADV 350. Well, I've got news for you, folks. Yes, you might have fancy gold-coloured Showa forks, upside-down forks on the ADV, and Showa branded shock absorbers on the back, but it's a designer label exercise. Yes, the ADV suspension is undoubtedly good and a little bit more premium than the stuff on the Forza, but guess what? The stuff on the Forza is also made by Showa, although it's not labelled in the same way. It's not painted gold. It's Showa suspension still, and even the less premium shower units work very well indeed. I mean, the fact that, you know, shower units are used on so many different makes and model of motorbike now shows that Showa know what they're doing. You know, I know other brands are available, Olin's and all that sort of thing and whatnot. But, you know, at the end of the day, I bought the Forza as a workhorse, a winter bike, something to be used like, well, basically it's my idea of a car. It's a two-wheeled car. That's why I bought the Forza, because the Forza fulfills that function for me. The only difference being, of course, being a maxi scooter, I don't get stuck in traffic jams like cars do, because, you know, and I'm not a great fan of car driving, but comfort-wise and whatnot, the Forza is very good. Now, there is one thing that I've got to address at some point. The rear suspension. At the moment, I've got it set on the factory settings. I rather suspect it's set to, the preload is set too high for my weight. I don't weigh a lot. And I've left it on the factory settings. I ain't changed it yet. But the thing is when I, after a couple of hours in the saddle, my bum starts to get sore. Don't think it's the seat, because the seat is, well, pretty much brand new and not really broken in, so I can't blame the seat. I can't blame the rear suspension, really, if I've got it on the wrong preload setting, so that's something else I'll have to experiment with. So when I get a minute, I'm going to knock the preload off and take it down to its lowest setting, because I only weigh 70 kilos, and I rather suspect the medium setting it's on at the moment is designed for people nearer 80 to 100 kilos. You know, because I am sort of fairly below the average weight, surprisingly. So that's something I'll have to look into. The other little concern I have about that is the only unwelcome change I found from the old Forza to the new 23-24 model is that the seat height is just that little bit higher. I know it's a low seat, but it's quite a wide seat, and I do find myself, my balls and my feet down without my heels touching down, which a 30-inch inside leg is. Well, it's just a comfort thing more than anything, I suppose. But I would prefer to be able to flat-foot it. Now, again, I've got an idea that if I knock the preload down, that may allow the suspension to sink a little bit further to allow me to flat-foot. So watch this space, I'll let you know how I get on with that. Failing all else, there are some lowering kits for the suspension available for the Forza, which lowers the suspension by a good inch and a half, couple of inches. So I'd rather not have to make any major modifications from that point of view, and I certainly don't want to cut the seat about or have to put a different seat on or anything like that. I mean, yes, in the long run for comfort and whatnot, I might need to do it, or it may just be that I need to get a bit more used to it, because I don't remember it being a problem with the previous Forza, but I have a suspicion the previous Forza's 300's seat height was probably about an inch lower, so we shall have to see. Yeah, so fuel consumption seems to be about what people reckon, around about the 80 miles per gallon mark, or thereabouts. I don't worry myself with fuel miles per gallon too much. Anywhere in that ballpark is pretty good for the performance of the machine. As I say, the performance for what I need is adequate. The road holding is adequate. It's a comfortable machine for the most part. I've got plenty of storage under the seat should I need it. It's going to be okay for longer runs, especially when my dear wife comes for a ride out. So for a bit of short to medium range touring, it should be fine. To that end, I just bolted on a Chiggy all-in-one 5-inch TFT screen, which mimics the iPhone, so you can keep your phone in your pocket but still use your navigation apps, which I figured was probably the best solution for a short touring machine. I've learned two things from that as well. First of all, things like the Garmin and the Jiggy can be a real pain in the neck to wire in to a scooter, because all the body work and you're never quite sure how to undo the panels and how to run the wires and stuff, so it's a bit of a nuisance. Temporarily I'm going to run it off the short wire supplied with the USB-A plug on it, but I've got to get just waiting for a friend of mine to drop off an adapter, USB socket A to USB-C, because there's only a USB-C connection in the little glove box for the Forza, which is hooked to the ignition. So the idea is that when the ignition switched off, the Jig will switch off automatically. Now there is a separate wiring harness you get with it, but as I say, it's going to be a lot of faff undoing all the panels, and I've got no idea how to do that yet. And I'm waiting to hear from the Honda dealers as to how to go about that. But in the meantime, I've got to try and run it off that USB connection, and I'll let you know how I get on with that. But it did highlight one other thing for me, leaving the Garmin aside, which I decided the Garmin is all singing, all dancing. It's got loads of information. It's almost like too much information sometimes. And when you're riding, I think the workload from reading that could get a little bit too high to be comfortable, if you know what I mean. So that's why I decided that the Garmin Zomo XT is going in the van, Queenie, our mobile beach hut, because Jackie's concentrating on the driving. I then act as navigator and concentrate on the Garmin, and I give her the relevant information as needed. We sort of share the workload like that, and you know, it works better that way. And I rather suspect that this is how people do, well, couples do navigation when they're touring about. Of course, your mileage may vary, you may do it differently, but this is the way we do it. So the Garmin is very definitely, its chief job is going to be being used in the van. As I say, once I get the Jiggy sorted out and the Forza, that'll be permanently plumbed in eventually, and I'll use things like Calimoto or Google Maps, Apple Maps, whatever works basically, or whatever works best for whatever journey I'm doing. Because obviously the thing is with the apps, some apps are better at some jobs than others, if you see what I mean. I'm still in the process of discovering this for myself, so this is all like new to me. I know some of you have probably been messing around with sat-navs for years, but up until this year I've messed around with the good old-fashioned Ordnance Survey map, road atlases, and reading street signs, which of course is the old-fashioned way of doing things. And as I said previously, I didn't bother with a lot of gadgets and sat-navs before, because certainly 10 years ago they weren't as good as they are now, and I found them somewhat lacking, and I tried them out back then, and I only just recently looked at the thing again and thought, you know what, it's actually worth doing now. And another thing that I found out from messing around this last couple of weeks with sat-navs is that probably by far the best solution, if you just want simple navigation around the back roads and that sort of thing, then it's probably got to be the Beeline Moto 2. I saw the Moto when I did think about it, and then the Moto 2 came out, and I saw that Silver Fox Travels, good old Nick, he got one. He did a full video on it, so I shan't. Suffice to say, his video helped me to decide to pull the trigger and buy one. Originally, I was only going to use one navigation device for all three machines, and then I realised there was a disparity between the capabilities of the things, and so that's why I did the middle thing. I looked at all sorts of different gadgets, and I've chosen the three I have for two reasons. First of all, each one I think is tailored for each vehicle and the uses that I'm going to put them to. That's a theory anyway. Whether this is what it turns out in practice is another thing. Also, I thought it was an opportunity to look at some of the market leaders and do a kind of comparison. I don't do reviews as such, because I think you can get bogged down in facts and figures and technical aspects and stuff. Sometimes it's just a question of trying these things out and seeing what works best for what job. So I think by doing what I've done, I've got the Garmin fully featured for the car scenario. I've got the Chiggy all-in-one 5-inch screen to mimic my iPhone, therefore keep my iPhone nice and safe in my pocket and away from vibration. And from what I've seen of videos, I mean there's lots of videos about the Chiggy on YouTube. So I did like everybody else. So I had a look at the reviews, weighed everything up, and thought, yeah, actually that looks a fairly good piece of kit. It's well made. I mean, I can attest to that. It's a bit tricky to mount. I suspect this is a common problem with a lot of them. But the thing is, with the Chiggy, they've got special shaped screw heads and stuff like that, and they give you the little tools to do them, star shape and all that sort of thing. And that does make it tricky to fit. My friend Andy from Norfolk GT 650 Rider channel actually came over for tea and cakes the other day, and he actually helped me bolt the thing on, and he found it a little bit tricky as well. And it's because of the little wrenches they give you are a little bit fiddly and whatnot, but the end result is worth the effort. It's on the Forza now, nice and solid and whatnot. I've just got the wiring to figure out now. I can't do anything in a hurry around here because obviously health-wise and whatnot, I have to take my time with things. But I have actually done a static test indoors, running off a charger plug, and sort of tethered it to my iPhone and stuff like that. I've tested the hands-free phone, and I've tested the music streaming, and it all works, and it all works seamlessly. As soon as the Chiggy turns on, it automatically connects with your phone and everything is there, so it should work exactly the same way mounted to the bike, which is often the case in how to fit videos that people have done. It is actually that easy. The actual setting it up is uncomplicated, fairly easy. I think even my wife would be able to do it, but there you go. So that's a plus point with them. The actual physical bolting them onto the bike and mounting it and setting up. There's different mountings come in the box. There's other different mountings that you may or may not need to purchase aftermarket to make it fit, whatever. But it's the same deal with pretty much any nav unit that you choose. They do give you one or two options for mounting in the box, but often you might find you need to make a third-party purchase, an aftermarket purchase of a different mount to suit your particular bike or suit the particular way you want to mount it. It's for me, it is completely unsatisfactory to mount any navigation device other than centrally, for two reasons. First of all, in the case of the Forza, I've mounted the screen just above the main dashboard. That means that it stays below my eye line, but I only have to glance for maps and things like that, and I don't have to take my eye off the road really, which is an ideal situation. So it's almost like having a head-up display in an aeroplane really. So I can just glance down when I need to and then back. I don't want my head in the cockpit too much. And one thing I found with the Forza is the dashboard on the Forza is very good as well. You can glance down. You've got a great big analog speedo and a great big analog rev counter, which you can see quite easily. I think some of the digital stuff between the clocks is a little bit fiddly, and quite honestly you don't need a lot of that information all the time. And going back to the fuel gauge, that's actually quite readable as well, so that's good. And to have the chuggy just above the dashboard, that's just about right, eyeline wise, peripheral wise, and I wouldn't recommend going above a 5-inch. I know there's people out there, they put 6, 7 or 8 inch size TFTs. I think that's bonkers. 5-inch for most people should be perfectly adequate for doing what you need to do. If you want an extra navigational aid or to be able to play your music while you're riding, whatever. I'm not so much interested in playing music when I'm riding. It's not something I do for the shorter journeys. If I was on a long journey, I might just want to listen to Classic FM, and I happen to have the Classic FM app on my phone for that purpose, so that would be nice. Other radio stations are available, of course, but it depends what you like, really. I do like rock as well, but I don't tend to listen to rock when I'm driving. I learned this some years ago when I was listening to rock when I was driving a car, and I tended to drive too fast. So I do think music can have a definite effect on your driving. If you're listening to relaxing music like Rachmaninoff or whatever, you tend to drive more relaxed. Again, your mileage may vary. You might find Whitesnake is perfectly relaxing, in which case, crack on. Personally, I like a bit of classical music from time to time when I want to relax. I've got a very eclectic mix of genres in my music collection. I've got everything from Motorhead to Mantovani. I like what I like, and I make no apology for that. I mean, I've got pot noodles in the cupboard, and I've got Stilton cheese in the fridge, so there's nothing wrong with a bit of variety, and there's nothing wrong with liking different things for different reasons. I mean, that's pretty much personified in my bikes and my garage at the moment. As you guys know, I am a bit of a Royal Enfield fanboy, as is the modern vernacular, but I'm also a bit of a Honda fanboy. And, well, I've actually owned more Hondas than any other make, so that's to be expected, I suppose. But I've had BMWs, I've had Harley Davidson, Triumphs, Suzuki, Kawasaki, Yamaha. I've been past my test on the Yamaha, as it happens. And I've ridden some other stuff as well. And at the end of the day, I choose things because I like them. Now, one other thing I learned this week was that my camera kept overheating, and it was when I was running it in 4K. And I thought to myself, I wonder what will happen if I switch it from 4K to 2.7. And I'm not actually going to find that out this time round, because it's actually a bit cooler at the moment, and I am actually running in 4K. Because I forgot to switch it back to 2.7. My point being is I think, well, certainly with the weather the last couple of weeks being hot, the 4K was making the camera get too hot and shut down. At the moment, the camera and everything's running fine, but there is a little bit of a breeze blowing through here today, and we're now at 29 minutes and it hasn't crashed yet, so there might be something in my theory, but I am actually getting a bit of cooling going across the camera at the moment, so it may be just keeping it just low enough to keep it going. Having said that, I may have spoken too soon, and if it goes zap in a minute, you'll know why. So I'll just forearm you in case there's an abrupt end to the video like there was last time. That being the case, obviously I'll tack a bit on the end and tell you it went pop again. But so far, so good. The other thing I've been doing, I've been messing with a lot of gadgets lately. I've got the microphone testing, 1 2 1 2. That was thanks to Andy as well. He tried one out. He put him onto it, and he tried it, and then he put me onto it. And it's surprising how many of us now have got very little mice attached to our t-shirts. I like these. There's Mikey the Mouse. So there you go, give him a little stroke. Here we go, good boy, yes. Anyway, so there's that. So my soundtrack should be a bit better now. Now, I've been messing around with something else, which might surprise some of you and might not surprise some. I bought a DJI 4K mini drone. And, yeah, drones, they're not toys. They're, well, I'm not going to say difficult to use, but there is a bit more to it than just flicking on the camera like you do with the action cams that we're used to. And I haven't actually gotten around to. I mean, I have sort of had a look at the equipment, and I haven't gotten around to doing it. I've been messing around, because I've been messing around with the sat-navs and I've been sorting out bikes and various things. I haven't actually gotten around to doing the drone. Now, the drone I've got was one that was suggested to me by Bruce over at Ghost Rider Scotland. He uses the same drone to get some really dramatic shots, places around East Lothian where he lives and whatnot, and I've always admired his drone shots. So anyway, he sent me the details of the drone, and I got one, and I haven't had a chance to play with it yet, because it's one of those things, I suppose, that I've just got to set a few days aside to, do the setup and register as a drone pilot and all the rest of it, and get used to the basics. I will do that. I'll probably do it during the autumn and into the winter, because I can do some of the sort of basic things indoors with it, and then when I'm feeling confident enough on a day where there's not too much breeze, I'll try a proper flight, and then when I've done that, I shall start using it, and I'll be able to put some drone content in the films as well. And at least if I do get stuck getting out on the bike or whatever, I've got another type of content I can do from home, because I live right on the edge of the countryside right here where I live, so I've literally got to fly drone that away, and I'm on open countryside, so that would be quite interesting. And of course the drone's easily packed it away and put in a carry case and carried on a mobility scooter or in the car, or even on one of the bikes. That's why so many moto vloggers tend to be doing drones as well. And I've always had an interest in aviation anyway, so and it's just a nice little way to indulge in some flying, even vicariously through the lens of a drone. It sort of appeals to me for the same reason motorbikers appeal to me. There's a certain feeling of freedom involved. Right now, David J at the Wire Forest Rider channel, as you may be aware, he has a CL500 Honda, and it was partly due to his experiences with the CL 500 that actually prompted me to buy mine. And I'm quite pleased with it now. I haven't been able to have a ride on it yet, and there's a good reason. It's not, funnily enough, it's not due to my health issues, it's because I've just been so busy. Those of you who know me will know that my daughter got married just this last week gone, and obviously this is the family events that I was talking about that prevented me riding this last week or so. I am intending to get on my CL 500 before the weather starts to turn, because the CL is slated to be the summer motorcycle, or summer, early autumn, and then spring into summer sort of thing. Forza is the all-weather, all-year bike. Well, that's the plan anyway, but we know how these plans tend to get turned on their head sometimes. So you never know, I might end up using the CL in the winter as well, depending on what the weather is actually like, what the road conditions are like. Now, one of the reasons I bought the CL was because partly the seat height, because I did test ride a Rebel 500, but I did find it a bit cramped, believe it or not. Now, perhaps when my younger years I wouldn't have found it cramped, but as I'm a bit creaky, as most of us do. And we're back. Yeah, I've just switched resolutions. I was right about the resolution affecting the heat, I think. I let the camera cool down and I've just switched it to 2.7K, 2.7K with 50 frames per second. I'm still getting used to this. You'll have to just bear with me, I suppose. Anyway, while I was waiting for that to cool down, I just just had myself a crafty pipe. Anyway, where was I when I was rudely interrupted by that battery? Oh yes, I was talking about the CL, wasn't I? Yeah, I bought the CL to act as my naughty boy bike, back road machine, but I still wanted a little bit of motorway performance, and a bit to have a bit of fun. Now my first choice, I must admit, I did have 3 on my short list. One was the CCM Spitfire, but I didn't get one of those because I couldn't afford it. That is a sort of more luxury end of the market. Maybe one day I'll find one second hand that's affordable, but until that day. But I wanted that sort of ballpark sort of thing. I did think about the new Gorilla as it was coming out, and it's turned out that the Gorilla is a very good motorbike according to the people who've ridden it, and I've spoken to 1 or 2 people who've ridden it and they say it's a very good machine. But I wanted something slightly different this time around anyway. I wanted a twin-cylinder 500. I'd have had, a single-cylinder 500 a while back. And I wanted a twin-cylinder water-cooled 4 valves per head. 4 valves per cylinder rather. And I wanted a proven engine. The 471cc parallel twin from Honda is that engine. It's four valves per cylinder, fuel injection, water cooled, absolutely bomb proof. They've been making them for a good few years now. They've put it right across their 500 range. If there's a particular type of bike you want with that 500 engine, they do a variant that will suit you. In my case, I wanted something like an adventure bike, but pared back to the essentials, and the CL is that bike. It combines the bomb-proof engine with the compliant suspension that my poor old bones want, and also to deal with the potholes here in East Anglia, because we have got a few of them. You know, so softer compliant suspension. Sort of riding I do, I like softer suspension. So the CL fitted the bill perfectly for that. And I wanted an engine that was efficient, powerful, you know, powerful for its size. I mean, it's 46 horsepower. That's what it's tuned at on the CL. I didn't want to go the full whack of getting, say, an NX500 with all the adventure kit on it and whatnot, because I just don't. That's not my sort of riding nowadays. In fact, actually, to be fair, I've always travelled light, and lightness is the name of the game with the CL, because it doesn't have modes, it doesn't have fancy electricity on board, it doesn't have. It's got shower suspension, which is the norm for Honda. It's good suspension. It's got good tyres. I've heard good reports. It's got Dunlop Turmax mixed tyres as standard fitment. Most people who've reported on it have said they're good tyres. You know, you're not going to do like heavy off-roading with it, but as that's not what I'm going to use the bike for, it's not a problem. I mean, they call it a scrambler, but I'm going to say this. It's got scrambler-esque styling, and yes, you could put knobbly tyres on it and use it as a scrambler. Some people say, oh, it hasn't got enough ground clearance. Well, I think that's rubbish. You know, the sort of green landing round here that you'd do, you wouldn't need a huge amount of ground clearance. So it's a bit of a moot point. What I will say about the CL is it's exactly what I was looking for as... Oh, lovely, a cup of tea. Thank you, my dear. My dear wife's just brought me a nice fresh cup of tea, isn't she good? Oh, yeah. Anyway, the CL is... It's basically what Honda have always been really good at, which is to produce a bomb-proof bike. It's a good roadster, and that's what I wanted. And it ticked all the boxes. And now you might say, well, you can get something a bit cheaper. Well, you see, the thing was, here's the trick. I bought it from my Honda dealer. I saw it when I was buying my Forza. I bought it straight from their demo fleet. 800 miles, which is as near as damn it a new bike. But it was somewhere in the region of 1,400 quid cheaper than I would have paid new. That's a no-brainer, isn't it? I got it for less than one of them new Triumphs would have cost me. And, you know, and the new Triumph, again, it was something that was in my list. Is, again, a single cylinder. I wanted a twin this time round. Of course, that leaves all sorts of possibilities for my next project bike, but we'll see about that. There is something coming, but, you know, as I say, I'm keeping that one under me hat. But as a practical, fun machine, which I'm going to be comfortable on and be able to do a good few miles on, and for bimbling around the villages and stuff, and doing the occasional fast A road or motorway or whatever, it's going to do that fine. And I know this for two reasons. First of all, I've used parallel twins quite a lot on motorways and stuff in the past, and I know what to expect of a good 500 twin. And I mean, as I say, I am familiar with the engine. I've ridden the Rebel and also the CB500 as it was. The thing that I always came out with from trying those out was I liked the engine. I didn't necessarily like the chassis for various reasons, but I did like the engine. I mean, I'll be perfectly honest, if I didn't feel cramped on the Rebel, I'd have bought a Rebel. But even though I've only got 30-inch inside leg, I did find it slightly slightly cramped. And you know, some people say, well, you could fix that by putting forward controls on, but I don't think that. I don't know. I don't think forward controls would suit a Rebel. I think you've got to be. I don't know. I just found it didn't fit for me, whereas the CL did. I mean, at the moment, again, same problem. Feet are just touching down on the balls of my feet, not quite on the heel. Again, this might be down to the suspension preload, because again, I haven't altered the preload settings, and they obviously set about midway like they often are when they come from a dealer. And I haven't altered it yet, but that's going to be one of the first things I do anyway. But in all other respects, I've sat, you know, sitting on the CL. Feels nice and comfortable. Part of the problem for me, of course, is with my age and that, I'm getting a bony bum. Despite the fact I'm putting it on here, I'm losing it there. So I haven't got as much padding on my bum as I used to have. I suspect that might be something to do with it. Whether I'm going to end up having to get a gel pad or something to put on the seat, I don't know. I rather hope not, because, I mean, again, these relatively new motorbikes, and the seats aren't going to have been broken in anyway, so I'm going to endure it for a little while and see how it works out. I mean, the worst that can happen is that I might decide the seats are too uncomfortable and I'll change them for a custom seat of some sort, but until that time I ain't going to worry about it too much. Quite apart from anything else, I'm still working my way up to longer rides. At the moment my average ride is an hour and a half. You know, because, you know, health issues and stuff. Speaking of which, I am continuing to get better. Doctor's got me on some more tablets for treatment and stuff, and the discomfort is dissipating, and things are getting a bit better in the plumbing department, so I'm a bit more comfortable and feeling able to do more things. So, you know, won't be long before I'm firing on all cylinders again. So hopefully you guys will get to see some ride-out videos soon. But I suppose really my main riding season is in end of summer into the autumn. So, you know, it is what it is, I suppose. So, what else have I got to tell you? Well, I was saying about the drones, wasn't I? I've noticed a new drone's come out. It's called the DJI Neo. And it's a small drone weighing about 140 grams. And it comes with a 4K camera. And you can fly it straight out of the box without any other controller needed. You can just do some preset shots you can do with it. And it'll take off, do the shots, and then come back to your hand and land. So I've been looking into that, and it's a beginner's drone. And I think I might get one of those. Because it would be useful for some of the more basic drone shots. And also, I suspect that it would be a good drone to teach other people, because I'm pretty sure Jackie would enjoy a drone if she knew how to work one, because she's into photography and videography as a hobby, and so I might think about that. Also, my mate Billy, the Spanny Yeti, well, he's a bit of sausage fingers when it comes to stuff like that, so I suspect a very basic drone like that might be ideal to teach him how to fly a drone before we let him loose with something a bit more complicated. But so that's another little thing for the winter. When we can't go out, I'll be teaching Jackie and probably Billy the Spanny Yeti the basics of dronage. Of course, that's assuming I learn it myself, but there you go. So that's another thing. If you want to know about the DJI Neo drone, put that into your search engine on YouTube and you'll find loads of videos out. about it because it's a new model that's just come out. I wish it had been out a few months ago, because that would have been the first one I bought before I bought the one I've got. Because the one I've got is more complicated, more all singing, all dancing. But, well, I haven't started working on that one yet, so it might make sense to get the Neo, start the basics on that, then move up to the other one. But, you know how these things are. Sometimes the bargain comes up, you grab the bargain when you can. And you stick all the bits in front of you and then decide how best to deal with it. Oh yeah, I forgot to conclude the conclusion on the sat-navs. Conclusion on sat-navs so far. The Garmin is fully featured, works well with cars. The Chiggy should be an ideal thing for sort of short to medium range touring. And the Beeline, if you want simple navigation that just works with a minimum mucking about with mounts and stuff like that, then that's the one to go for. It's also the cheapest as well. And that's the one that's gone on the CL. Because the thing about the CL is I bought that bike partly because it was pared back. Nothing unnecessary on board in the way of electronics. Nothing that it wasn't necessary, and I wanted to take the same approach with the nav on it. So I suspect that the Beeline is an absolutely brilliant match for the CL. Anyway, my battery's starting to run low now, so I shall sign off as usual. So, keep both hands on the handlebars unless you're giving hand signals. Keep both wheels on the tarmac unless you're off-roading. And most importantly, be kind to people. And I shall see you on the next one. Bye-bye.